Hello, investors. It's Don Vandenbord, Chief Investment Officer with Revere Asset Management. Today is Friday, October 11th, 5:19 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am back, baby, surviving the hurricane. Thanks for all the well wishes from all of our wonderful followers out there, wishing we stayed safe. We did. We were sandbagged up. It ended up not having to worry about it. Water really came nowhere near us as it stayed south. And thoughts and prayers, of course, to the people in South Florida, Southwest Florida, that really got hit by that brutal hurricane. But here we are, Friday, October 11th, 5:19. I'm here with the Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. Let's get right into it. Market state, we're in an uptrend. You can see the trend gauge over here, coveted four green arrows in growth mode for market leaders, and all the major indexes trending above their 21-day moving average. That's our short-term indicator. Medium-term 50-day moving average, long-term 200-day moving average. Particularly great action from leading stocks this week. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's the Mag 7 that leads, sometimes it's individual sectors that lead, but we're getting some good performance out of growth leaders from a variety of sectors. So what happened today? Following up CPI, which was a little hotter than expected, and also job openings, which were above expectations. This was Thursday's data. The question was, does the Fed not need to raise because the economy is stronger? But we put in a nice consolidation day on Thursday, as was detailed. Ted and Connor really doing a great job filling in for me while I was out. Um, but that led to PPI and consumer confidence today. PPI really kind of close to inline, nothing that impacted the market. And then at 10 o'clock, consumer confidence came out and it was below expectations. And at times that has impacted the market, but not today. We opened basically flat, ran higher for the first 60 minutes, and then basically went sideways in a tight range for the rest of the day. Leading stocks really flexing today, uh, and mid and small caps leading. Got back into small caps today with a reclaim of some moving averages. So here are the numbers: a 21 over 21, putting a range out here today, 1.5% to 2.1%. We'll talk about that when we get into them a little bit, but basically, Tesla, which was one of the 21 over 21, got hit hard as the reaction to their Robo Day was underwhelming, to say the least. And also, Flutter, we'll talk about this. Flustered by Flutter. That was one of the 21-21, also down 8.8%. So if you take those out, it kicks the number up. On the other side, if you take out on the high side two names that really flexed for us today, MSTR up 16% and Uber up 11%, it brings it down to 1.48%. So somewhere in there. The point is 15 up, two neutral, four down. Good day for our 21-21, and also good day for the RG8, as you would guess, up 1.51%. Those two normally move in sync. Not a good day for the big eight. And I also got a range on this because of Tesla being down 8.8%. So negative -0.9 to the rest of them on average positive if you take Tesla out of the equation. S&P 500, as I said, open flat, ran strong for 60 minutes, ended up 0.6%, equal weight. See this. Breadth has been weak lately, but it expanded today with the Mag 7 taking a rest. RSP up 0.98%. NASDAQ 100, the laggard, up 0.16. Equal weight up 0.84. Good breadth there again. Dow up a little less than 1%. And here's where the breadth came in today. Good reactions from JP Morgan and Wells Fargo with pre-market earnings. Mid caps, that led banks to be very strong today. Mid caps up 1.6, Russell 2000 up 2.1, although those are big cap banks that trickle down into the whole banking sector. Global 60/40 up 0.38%. That's all stocks. Bonds were flat. Really, we're seeing a divergence in bonds. Long-term bond yields have continued to climb higher since the Fed raised rates, while 10-year and below we're basically flat today. Our flagship portfolio, GROTECTION, putting in a nice day, up 1.31%. We'll go through the entire 21 over 21, including, of course, what we own, which is always flagged. We always keep you abreast of what we're doing in the portfolio and why we're doing it. All right, let's get into the numbers. Here's the S&P 500, and since it's a Friday, in the upper right-hand corner, I'm also going to show the weekly chart so you can get an idea of what the gains were for the week on all the tickers that we're going to go through, as well as how they've been doing over the past 3+ months. But here you can see the S&P 500. Let's go to the 60-minute chart because we've been talking about this for a while. And that breakout range, 14-day consolidation. We broke out of it on Wednesday. Nice consolidation day Thursday, broke above 5,800, making a higher high today. So we're 3 days past this breakout level. We're going to tighten our ranges up. We tested the top of this range multiple times over the past 3 days since that breakout. So 57.65 to 67 is what we're focused on. That was the lows from Thursday. We tested that overnight, Thursday into Friday, didn't touch it anywhere near today. Well, we did. 57.75 was the low for the day. So close to it, but that's what we want to focus on right now. And of course, if we get back into the range, that'll just say that this breakout failed quickly. This bigger range with 56.74 being at the bottom. Similar range for the NASDAQ 100, this 490 level. That's what we're going to focus on for next week. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit, given the keys for Monday, but want to monitor the pullback, the lows from Thursday with the breakout above this 490 level. I really don't consider this 490 to 494 because it only stayed above it for like 30 minutes before giving it up. So that was a failed gap up and then back into this long range. But we're going to tighten this range up and focus on the top of the range next week. That'll change, of course, if we go back into the range. We'll start talking about the bottom of that range again. But let's go to the daily chart. Not all-time highs yet for the NASDAQ 100, which really did top for now back here in July. If these things get in gear, they can really crank the big cap S&P 500 higher. Although it's already made all-time highs on its own, it's not just the NASDAQ 100. The other 493, just not the big seven, the other 493 certainly playing a role in that. Let's go to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's the New York Composite because I can't. Okay, there we go. Here, all-time highs. Dow Jones Industrial Average after going sideways for 3+ weeks around that 42,000 level, breaking higher again, confirming what we saw on the S&P 500. Let's look at the equal weight S&P 500 quickly. As you can see, that also didn't quite break out the prior 2 days, but it did today, getting into that 190 level. So a little relative weakness as the big cap names outperformed Wednesday and Thursday. Equal weight caught up today. Let's go to the S&P 400 mid cap. This is the incubator for the next the big cap leaders, and you can see making a higher high and breaking out again, confirming the breakout on the S&P, which is what we'd like to see. Let's go to the Russell 2000 small cap index. Not quite breaking out, but did break this downtrend line today. You could draw this a couple different ways, but either way, it's a clear breakout. And with that breakout, we got back in using URTY, a 3x ETF for small caps. So breaking that downtrend line. Let's see if this can stick this time. It's been a lot of 3 steps up, 5 steps up, 3 steps back here. A lot of a big, huge sell-off here from 2,300 to 2,000 during this panic over the yen to the dollar and interest rates in Japan. The carry trade, another rally here with a violent sell-off. Violent sell-offs, okay, if they happen intraday, not necessarily overnight, because we've always got our stops in place. We'll talk about Flutter here in a little bit and what happened with that when we go through the portfolio, as we got stopped on that today. So those are the major indexes. Let's go to the VIX. kind of elevated with names being at an all-time high. Don't really have an explanation for that. We'd like to see this closer to 16. Usually, all-time highs are confirmed by a lower low on the VIX, but we're certainly not seeing that. So this is absolutely a divergence. Last time we were making highs like this, we were down around the 12 level on the VIX, but way above that now. U.S. dollar. It may be people waiting for an October surprise related to the election. You've also got Israel and Iran, never-ending war going on, as well as Ukraine, Russia. So here's the dollar tightening up over the last 3 days after a big move up off the bottom. We'd like to see this roll over and start coming back down, benefit precious metals and generally stocks, although it hasn't been stopping the S&P 500 from making higher highs. So there's the dollar. Let's go to precious metals now. Here's GLD with a gap up, breaking a downtrend line. GDX broke the downtrend line yesterday, gapped up today, closed at the lows of the range, but this is getting attractive for us again to possibly re-enter via NUGT. That's usually how we play. Gold stocks, SLV, second up day after a failed breakout above this flat base. And big move today, Bitcoin, IBIT, up 5.9%. You can see it gapped up and closed near the highs of the range. So breaking this downtrend line from the last few days, arguably, if you go back 3 weeks, it's right into the top of a downtrend line. And there's a much bigger downtrend line that if we clear that, the Bitcoin boys are going to be frothing. Let's go to bonds. BND, Broad Bond Index, tight range today, but ELT making a lower low. That means that the 30-year yield is making a higher high. And TNX, the 10-year, down on the day, the yield down as the 10-year price was mildly higher. All right, that's our inter-asset correlation chart section. Let's go to the tail of the tape. Stochastics improved over the last couple of days. NASI RSI still pointing down. That's because breadth has been weak. With the increase today, we're waiting for this to update and keep an eye on this. If this turns before getting to oversold, this normally is a tailwind, and we could have more room to run if we've got that at our back. CNN, Fear and Greed. The hamster fell off the wheel. I don't have an update for this. The website was not working, so we'll just say it's at a 71, although I would expect this to have dropped today with the green close. AAII, Bears versus Bulls. If this gets 32 or above, right now 49 minus 20, 29. If it gets 32 or above for 2+ weeks, it's a fairly reliable signal of a short-term top. So we're keeping an eye on that. News, PPI, as I said, okay. Consumer confidence below expectations didn't matter. The keys coming into today, the breakout support levels, S&P 500, it was tested and held overnight. NASDAQ 100, we went above this 494, briefly poked down inside it. We're going to update this range for next week. And PPI muted reaction today. Day count up 2 of the last 3. So basically 3 days after the breakout above that recent support range that we were chopping around in on the S&P 500. 4th day above the 8-day moving average, 23rd day above the 21. As I said, love to see opening 5-minute making a low. We always monitor the opening 30-minute range and just put a low in right away and a strong 1-hour trend up before basing the rest of the day. Let's just take a look at that real quick. It's one of the things that we're always monitoring. You can see the big move up there. And then 5,800, 5,801 to 5,819, 20 points. That's a tight range for the rest of the day. So we got the gains, and the market was not willing to give them up. That kind of makes us 5,801, 5,800 level, another support level to keep an eye on here, but really take it down a little bit to that 57.65 to 67, which is what we tested mostly on Thursday. So we'll keep an eye on that for next week. Strong today. defense names, banks, industrials, transports, retail, and biotech to the downside. PLT, that's the 30-year bond price. XLY because of Tesla, that's discretionary, and XLK positive but lagging. URTY, I talked about why we bought that, and Flutter. We'll take a look at the chart of that and we'll discuss why we got stopped out on that today. Sometimes things just happen, and something happened today with Flutter. RVAB 151, up a bit to 156 with those two portfolio changes. Bottom line on the day, S&P 500 all-time high close, led by mid caps, small caps, and leading stocks. NASDAQ 100 lagged. Fees for Monday. That breakout support range 57.65 to 57.67 and the 490 level on the Qs. Let's see if that holds. All right, let's get into some charts now. Let me get 21 over 21 list, and we'll look at it in order of strongest to weakest. MicroStrategy. Gotta love this. This is a leverage Bitcoin play. Nice flat base. Two little handles here. You could argue they were short. This one a week. This one 4 days. Blasted out a bit on above average volume on the Bitcoin strength. So this is leading Bitcoin. Ted talked a little bit about this today on the podcast. Make sure you listen to that as Colonial Dan made an appearance on the podcast. But this is just a beautiful breakout, up 16%. Nice to have a piece of that in the portfolio. Not a huge piece, but a piece. Uber, about our third largest position, up 11%. They benefited, and look at the volume, 280% above average, breaking out of this flat base. Basically, the Tesla robo taxi event, there were no firm plans at all to issue a challenge to Uber for autonomous taxi. So Uber shareholders took that as good news and up 11% on the day. COHR continues, now broke above the 100 level. Wonderful relative strength here. We do not own that. Reminder, if there's a green flag over here, it's in the portfolio. VRT, we do own this, added to it yesterday. So that's like the third or fourth largest position, up 4% on the day, looking great. SE consolidating for 3 weeks, busted out, slightly above average volume. You can see over here on the week up 3.4%, but most of that today up 3.6%. Sprouts continues to just ride the wave higher. Hava, we own this, making a higher high. Heart, we own this after a nice 2-day pullback, getting some of that back, holding the 8 EMA up 7.9% on the week. CEG, we own this. Early sell-off as some states are having issues with the demands of some of these energy companies that AI data centers are putting on them and getting approval for them. So some states are pushing back. CEG was down early on that. A bunch of them were down. VST also, but they closed green, and that's a demand for a leading stock. Perfect bounce off the 21-day moving average. Still down 6.76% on the week, but look at the move that it has had. Not easy with a big here's the IBD pivot plus 20%. This is basically a 20% pullback from high to low over the last 4 days. Our position size wasn't overly large, so we did manage to survive that. Axon continuing to trend higher. Guywire also riding the 8 like a champ. Freeport, copper forming a downtrend line here, bouncing off the 21. A-Lab, we own this. Added to it yesterday, reversed, so barely up on the day, but it was up much higher than where it closed. Look at the volume the last 3 days, though, and this was on a new product tied to data centers. Nice earnings numbers, volatile stock. We'll keep our position size smaller on this to avoid getting shaken out. ExxonMobil held to 21 as oil pulled back over the last couple of days. F5 with a breakout, not amazing volume, but still looking great. Oracle, we own this. Tight range today. Nvidia, flat on the day. Certainly a leading stock. Palantir continuing to make higher highs after breaking out last week. IoT made a higher high and then reversed. Shark Ninja continuing tight sideways action. Go to Tesla, then we'll go to Flutter. So here's the gap down on Tesla. This will obviously be off the list, as will Flutter for next week. So let's go to an intraday chart on this. So we always got alert set, and everything was cruising along higher, minding our own business, and then we started getting alerts as Flutter reversed, and there was no obvious news, but it was standing out like a sore thumb with the volume and breaking. We got alerts because we had three separate stops set. Because we've done three separate buys on this. The first stop got triggered, which was a certain percent below the 8-day exponential moving average. So we take a look at the chart, see how the volume's coming in. It was kind of alarming. Your risk is always to the 50-day on these, and you'll notice it bounced at the 50-day or the 200-day moving average, but we did not have enough gains to give it to the 50-day. So basically, it ended up that the Labour Party, which is basically the Communist Party over in England, floated an idea that they want to tax the hell out of gambling companies. Flutter is headquartered in Ireland. They're a global gaming company. They've got like 15 different uh, companies under their umbrella. The best known in the US is FanDuel. And they just raised guidance, but it didn't stick after that guidance. We own some back here on the initial breakout. We added on that gap up, and we're underwater on those shares. When it bounced earlier this week, we added some to it, but we got stopped on the first two. Our stops were hit the first two buys, or sorry, the second and the third buy, and the first buy was still profitable. But with this selling and no news, sometimes it's better to get the heck out of the way and ask questions later. And we got out on at an average of 231. So net net a small loss for this. Went from a plus 2.5 R trade, that's a multiple of your risk, to a minus a 0.5 R trade in like 20 minutes. And you hate when that happens, but it does happen. Once it broke the 21, the 231 average price that we got out at was right under there, and we'll bid goodbye to this. One note, uh, IBD fund index ownership. IBD has a bunch of growth funds that they consider the best. No ownership in this. So what we would be looking for and like to see is a company like Fidelity having already done their due diligence and owning this, but they don't. Let's look at a competitor, DraftKings, which the stock has not been acting as well. This caught up a little bit in this, but with it being mostly a local company, uh, not an international company. This has three flagged funds: Allspring Growth, Federated, and Harbor, all own DraftKings. Let's take a look at the DraftKings chart. It ended up actually up on the day, but if you look at the 5 minute, there was some volatility tied to this as they tied it somewhat to Flutter, but not really the impact that Flutter would have. But nowhere near as good a chart, which is why we were in Flutter. But bottom line is flustered by Flutter, stopped out on it. There's too many stocks acting well to be worried about something that you own selling off. The volume was heavy, ended up down 8.8% on the day. We're out of it, moving on to bigger and better things. And that is a 21 over 21 list. As I said, two names will come off, at least two for next week. We'll do a relative strength check on everything else as well and see what's acting well, and get our list for next week. That's going to wrap it. As always, like to hear from you. The email is don@revereasset.com. The phone's 855-REAL-WEALTH. That's 855-732-5932. If you're interested in becoming a client, or email my partner, Dan@revereasset.com. Reminder, our flagship portfolio named GROTECTION because it is designed set of rules to grow assets during uptrends, start to get out of the way if things go sideways or start to roll over, meaning protect during downtrends, especially fond of getting out of the way for bear markets. We lost less than half of what the market lost in the 2022 bear market. Same thing with COVID. And it's just following rules. Right now, the rules say we're in grow mode. Green means grow, as Connor said a couple of weeks ago. When you take a look at the trend gauge, which we update in every video, grow protection, not protecting right now, we're growing, but we do protect when needed to. And case in point, what we did with Flutter today. And that'll wrap it for the week ending October 11th. This is Don Vandenbord with Revere Asset Management, telling it like it is. Thanks for listening and have a great weekend.